All right, taking a quick look here at In the Shadows. This is Resistance in France 43 and 44 from GMT. This is it's fairly light. As you can see, the board's tiny. I just played the solitaire version. There is a regular two-player version. But since I was playing solo, I thought I would try, and the game has a bot designed for it, I thought I would try the actual solo bot instead of doing my usual, just playing it two-handed. And I'm not sure, the differences in the two-player version are that the two-player version uses this occupation resources track, and these apparently resource lines or something are affected, or train lines or whatever are affected in the two-player game. None of that's used in the solo version. And then I don't know, in the solo version, it has its own deck, and then you've got a location deck in order to randomize the which locations certain things will happen in for the bot. Determining which zone is a unit, a occupation unit going to move from. You'll use the location deck to figure that out. Resolution deck is the same for both solo and multiplayer. But for the solitaire event deck, how it works is you draw 2 cards into your hand, and then you play one of those. And you can see here I ended up with nearly identical cards. But you can also end up with, well, these are all occupation cards. Who shuffled this? The red ones will be events focused on the resistance, and the gray cards will be events focused on the occupation. But you and the bot will play whatever cards you have available. So if you have, of your 2 cards in your hand, if they're both gray, you got to pick one and play it. Generally, you'll look, each card has a suit, meaning the card is referring to a particular zone on the map. So in this case, the blue symbol means this blue zone, this blue district. The white symbol here means the white district, and then there's a red symbol as well here, the Cross of Lorraine, that will refer to the red district. And then there's these zones here where the German troops can be sent back to if you successfully ambush them, with the Maquis, which are the yellow, and then your regular resistance cells are the red. 2 of the resistance cells are informers, so if in the course of these being revealed, they will be stuck there on the map. I'm not sure if there's an event card that could potentially move informers around, but once an informer is uncovered, you can't touch it, essentially. It can't, be returned to face down. You can't eliminate it somehow as the resistance. It's just stuck there, polluting whatever zone it's in. So, because sometimes these resolution cards, depending on the action you're doing, if there's a informer in the zone, that can impact how your success is going to go. So if you're trying to sabotage, say you do a sabotage action, you flip this card to see what the result is. For sabotage, you get 2 movements and an alert, unless an informer's in the zone, then nothing happens. So it's bad. You don't want informers in the zones. So yeah, basically what you're trying to do as the resistance is going to be determined by your persona that you choose. I think that's what these were called. Yeah, solitaire persona. In this case, I had chosen the Armée Secrète, which allows you to start further down the authority track, and you try and move this down by advancing this roundel thing, but you start here with the Armée Secrète instead of up here. So that gives you a shorter track to have to advance that down, which is good because your secondary victory condition is you have to push that authority marker all the way to the last space on the track. So that it sort of gives you something to focus on as the resistance while you're playing against the bot. And I was able to squeak out a victory at the end, although you can see in the disappeared box here, these are all the units that were arrested by the occupation forces. So, and most of this happened like in the last 3 turns or so. So I just barely squeaked out a victory, and one of those was with a cell that was actually an informer, but fortunately it was never revealed. So I had the at least 3 resistance units on the map at the end of the game, which is what I needed in order to actually win at the end of the 9th round. So barely managed to pull it off. Had this not been all the way at the bottom, I would have lost because I needed to accomplish that as my victory condition. So anyway, what happens is against the solo bot, you're going to have 2 cards in your hand, and you'll pick one to play. So I would have played that, and then you flip the top card for the bot. You compare these numbers. If your number is higher, you choose who goes first. If the bot's number is higher, I can never remember this, I always had to look it up. If your card's AP value is greater than or equal to the occupation card's value, you choose who goes first. So you could make the bot go first, particularly if the bot has an event that benefits you that's better than the one that you played, you might want the bot to go first. Or if it comes down to timing, if they have one that allows you to flip uncovered units, you would probably play that second, and you'd do whatever you wanted to do first, because then you could uncover as many units as you wanted, and then when it moves to the bot's turn, the event will be, oh, I can flip those back over. So, that kind of thing might be why you would choose for the bot to go first. If the occupation's the higher value card and there's no uncovered resistance units on the map, you go first, otherwise occupation goes first. So if you've got only uncovered guys on the map, then you can go first. But if you have uncovered guys out there, the bot will go first and will attempt to arrest them. So the way the bot works is there's a flow chart, or like a table here with sort of if-then conditions that you follow across. Frankly, it's kind of baffling because this stuff doesn't mean anything. This is just meaningless. In each of these, what you're really looking for is what the state of the zone is, and that determines which zone the bot will focus its actions on. A BGG user created a flow chart, which is much more comprehensible than this. This is a very simple chart. That's why this is all meaningless in here, because that's how simple the chart is. But it ends up creating confusion about what instance actually applies. Whereas the flow chart is it this? Yes, then you go here. Is it this? Yes, then you go here. It's all going to get you where you need to go. That's the target zone if these questions are all answered. So the flow chart just made way more sense to me than this did, so I ended up following the flow chart. Once you determine the zone that the bot is going to take an action in, then you look at the number of points it's going to have. So in this card, it would only have 3 action points. And you would look here, 2 to 4, what's the first option? Attempt arrest. So if they're in a zone, say you've got a guy who's covered here in this zone, and this is the zone that you're in, with 3 points, they would attempt an arrest. Well, they can't because he's covered. So what's the second option? Attempt to uncover. So that's what they would do. They would spend one of these points, assuming that the action is in the red zone. It may not always be the case. If say the suit here is red, but one of the units on the map there was an uncovered unit, well, not that one, an uncovered unit in the blue zone and nowhere else, the bot's going to work here in the blue zone, even though it doesn't match the suit, because that's where they uncovered. They will always default to an uncovered. Now, if they had an uncovered in the red and the blue, they would focus on the red because that's what the suit is. Because if you try and do this, if you try and spend action points in a district outside of the suit, you're going to have to pay an extra action point to take non-movement actions. So that's why you want to focus on whatever your card. So for my card, when I played this, I would want to focus on the blue zone, or the blue district. Sorry, the zones are these individual spaces inside the district. So I keep messing with my terminology there. So anyway, the bot would attempt to, in this zone, put that back, in this zone, they would attempt to uncover this guy. They would do that by flipping these cards and look at the uncover action. This is failure, so they fail. So they have 2 points left. Looking here, same thing again. They're going to attempt to uncover, do the same thing, uncover. If there's an alert, there's a success, but there's no alert there. Otherwise, it's a failure. They have 1 point left. Same thing, even now down here in the 1 AP, same thing, attempt to arrest, attempt to uncover. They attempt to uncover again, fail. So this is what happened a lot in the early game. They had trouble uncovering, or they would finally uncover with their last AP and then have no AP left to actually attempt an arrest. And then at the end of the turn, any Maquis units, these yellow ones, get to flip back over again. If it had been, one of these red units that had flipped over, that wouldn't automatically flip back over at the end of the turn. Only the yellow ones do, so I would have to spend points next turn to flip this guy back over if I wanted to. And that could be difficult in a zone that has occupation forces, unless you've advanced this to the roundel here to this space, which is high resistance, ignores occupation units, meaning that they wouldn't have to spend extra AP to flip back over in a zone with occupation units. Ordinarily, it would cost you 1 AP per additional occupation unit in the zone, so to flip this guy back over would cost you 3 AP. But if the roundel is here, it'll only cost you 1. This you advance by performing sabotage actions. So yeah, I guess I should go through the actions that each side has. So the resistance actions: move uncovered is 1 AP, move covered is 2 AP, unless the roundel is in this space that says covert move costs 1 AP. So there's ways, you want to kind of move this around, and then as you move it to here, then it says lower authority, and that is what moves this down this track. So you want to do a lot of sabotage actions to push this down and make winning easier, essentially, because the higher up this is, by the time you get to round 9, that's the number of units you have to have on the map in order to win at that level. So pushing it all the way down here means you only need 3 guys as opposed to 6 up here. So you want to keep sabotaging and running this around the track. Every 3rd space gets to lower this, another one. So yeah, and then hide resistance. So this is where you're flipping an uncovered resistance cell to its covered side. You can ambush. Only the Maquis can do this, or the yellow guys. And if they're in a zone with these guys here, you pull this, look at ambush. Success. You remove a Milice. So, or don't remove. These are the the Vichy collaborators here, and they don't get removed to Germany like the German units can. They just get pushed to an adjacent zone. So it just kicks them out of the zone they're in. The Germans can be removed to there if you get a successful removal of a German unit. So that's what ambush does. Only the Maquis can do that. Recruit. If you're in a zone with a resistance unit, you can try and recruit another resistance unit. You'll have a recruitment pool. You can see mine's empty because most of my guys were arrested by the end of the game. Or you can recruit Maquis. You can also, ordinarily you will need a unit in the zone that you're trying to recruit in, except in the Lyon zone. Here you can recruit if there's no current unit there. And the same thing, you flip this card over and look in the recruit. In this case, we would get 1 red. We'd get one of these guys. Would be successfully recruited there. And that costs everything costs an AP except moving covert, and then sabotage, which I already explained. And that's where you're trying to advance this on the track. If you try and do the same action twice in a zone, it automatically uncovers the guy that's there. So generally, you don't want to do that because it can get expensive then to try and rehide them. A lot of times in your resolutions, you might succeed in your sabotage, but it generates an alert. When you generate an alert in a zone, you put one of these tokens here. And what that means is you can't do a sabotage there again until that alert marker is gone. Fortunately, the alert marker can be moved anytime a unit moves in there. It gets removed. Or if they succeed in arresting you, that also removes the alert. But that's the obviously the worst way to get rid of an alert. You'd prefer to get rid of it just by them moving around. The bot actions are move, millies, or Germans. They will not usually move unless they have a lot of AP. They might move if they have fewer AP. They won't move at all if they only have 1 AP. The interesting thing is that this doesn't seem to prioritize moving units into alert zones, because a lot of times I would have a guy in a zone by himself where there was an alert because he'd failed, flubbed a sabotage draw or something. And when the occupation moves into a zone with an alert, that costs 0 AP. And I didn't see anything in here on the bot about prioritizing 0 AP moves, because if they're down to 1 AP, they will attempt to rest, they will attempt to uncover, otherwise they'll just quit. It seems to me that at the very least, they should always, if there's a cell in a zone with an alert, that they should always move a guy in there, because it's free and costs them nothing, but the bot doesn't seem to allocate for that, which I thought was a little bit strange. But otherwise, there were no, and aside from the sort of confusing bot target chart, which was easily replaced by this flow chart, I didn't really have any rules questions. The game's very simple, plays very quickly. Again, the 2-player version may have a little more weight to it, a little more complexity, especially with the resources. I don't know how those would figure in to the balancing act that you're doing in the solo game. But as a solo exploration, I thought it was entertaining. Again, light, quick, and simple, but enough of a depth of strategy, especially with you knowing what your persona is. My focus was on advancing the roundel here so that I could lower this as quickly as possible. In fact, I'd done it by I think the end of turn 6 or round 6. I'd gotten it all the way to the bottom, and at that point I was just trying to kind of move my guys around the map to stay ahead of, or to stay out of the clutches of the occupation, with fairly limited success, because again, most of my guys were arrested by the end of the game. So yeah, and part of that was just the draws too. Early in the game, they were getting a lot of failures when they were doing uncovers and arrests, so by the end of the game that seemed to have worked itself out, and they were hitting me pretty hard. There are other personas in the game besides the Army Secrète. You've got the Franc-Tireur et Partisans, which is you can take a recruit action in any zone as if you had a resistance unit in that zone, so it kind of moves the Leon capability, spreads it all over the map. But the secondary victory condition is you must have at least 1 resistance cell in all 3 districts at the end of the game, so that might be kind of tough to do, especially if the bot has a late run. You've got the Group Francs de Combat, special ability here, successful ambush actions remove German units from play, which is different than moving them. Currently, you can't remove any of these occupation cubes from the map unless there's an event card that allows you to do so. Otherwise, the blue guys just get pushed from zone to zone, and the Germans can get pushed into Germany. One thing I didn't learn, and the bot makes no reference to, is moving units from Germany. Presumably, because there's no, you can see on the location cards, there's only the districts. There's nothing about moving Germany. And when you move the cubes on here, you use these cards to determine where they're moving from. And so I think my view on it is, in the solitaire game, if you move any of the German units into Germany, they're trapped there. They can't come out, because you will never have them as an option to move from an adjacent zone. Presumably, if you had an uncovered unit in a zone where the only adjacent cubes were in Germany, then presumably you would default to, okay, they have to come from there because the bot has to act in a zone where this is uncovered. It's always going to be the target zone. And their first action, if they have a lot of points, is to move. So if you have the capability to move, then you move there. It's the only way I can see anything moving from Germany because there's no other option. Otherwise, if you're using these cards, Germany's never going to come up. So I don't know how you move anything in the solo game out of Germany except by that limited scenario. So that may be something for an FAQ. So successful ambush actions remove German units from play. When taking ambush actions, you may draw a second resolution card for seeing the first, but you must accept the result of the second card, which is something you can ordinarily only do if you have 2 units in the space, but this allows you to do it if you only have 1, which is pretty good. But they must successfully ambush and remove at least 5 German units from the game. So that could be difficult to pull off. And then you've got here, Mon Devoir Émigré. Special ability, you may take ambush actions with both cells and Maquis. That's pretty good because ordinarily you're only ambushing with the yellow guys and there's only 3, you've got 4 of them total, so fewer than the red guys. So being able to ambush with the red guys is pretty good. But you must successfully ambush and remove all 3 collaborator markers from the game. And I don't even know what the collaborator markers are. They're these. I don't recall any reference in the solo rules to using the collaborator markers, so that would be, maybe it's on an event card. Otherwise, I have no idea how those even get into play. And I never used them, never saw any reference to them in the game that I played. So yeah, that would be another thing I guess I need to look in the rules for, because I have no idea how you would even get them into play, let alone remove them from play. So anyway, yeah, so a few lingering questions, but otherwise I thought it was a simple and fairly enjoyable exploration of the resistance in France. So, and it'd be a pretty quick and fun game to play, probably. Even opposed, it's probably not much longer because I think playing time is 30 to 45 minutes. So even with a maybe slightly more complicated multiplayer rule set, it's still not going to be more than 45 minutes or an hour tops playing through it. So anyway, just a little quick look at In the Shadows.